Yeah, it probably isn't, folks. All of that type of stuff is probably is. You couldn't hear it probably because I forgot to turn the damn mic on. Hey, everybody. Again, welcome to Coffee Hour. I'll start over again because everybody's like, dude, I couldn't hear him. I forgot to turn on the mic. Again, maybe I didn't have enough of this morning. Welcome to Coffee Hour. And so hopefully now you can hear me as well. So forgot to turn it on. So, hey. Thank you all for joining me here today on Coffee Hour. We come to you every week, Monday through Friday, with different topics, different things. You get to chime in and join the fun. In fact, because of that, I'm going to actually reset the hour because I did forget to turn on the audio. So again, hey, everybody, if you were sitting there going, dude, I can't hear nothing, it's just, it's a Tuesday. It's not a Monday. It's a Tuesday. But thanks for joining me and thanks for telling me you couldn't hear me. Because I wasn't paying attention to the audio. The new studio that we're in, I'm still getting used to everything. The lights are really brighter in this one than it was when we were in Texas. So a lot more stuff to kind of tickle the senses here in the morning. But thanks for joining me, taking the time out of your day to do so. Let's do some shout outs here. Charlie got me. He realized I had no sound. Wall, thank you. Thank you. You're most welcome. Glad I can help you out. And we got some regulars in here. Paul, again, thanks for joining me. And also, since I probably didn't have the mic on, thank you again to Mike. You know who you are for sending me this awesome hat from out Colorado Springs. Again, it's a fire instructor because everybody knows I'm an NRA fire instructor, and I used to teach concealed carry out in Texas. We moved back here to Virginia. I have no plans to do that here. Kind of the private life. I love to shoot my guns. I have a massive collection of firearms. I just love guns. So, at the end of the day, hopefully I can make it out. My bucket list is to get out there to see Dragon Man's Museum out in Colorado Springs. So if I'm out there, Mike, if you're watching or you watch a replay, thank you for the hat. And I will see you out there. I will holler at you and I will take you to dinner and you can get whatever you want, fanciest restaurant you want, whatever you have in Colorado Springs. I got you. I appreciate it. Thank you. Eric, good morning from California, up early. The official state with an official poop map. Yeah, little places where they're, that's an interesting, when people create apps, that's one I would have never thought to create is where's the poop? Not my thing. What's up, Red Dog? Thank you for joining me. As always, I appreciate you joining me. So today we're going to do a little exam prep. We're going to look at some questions. It doesn't matter whether you're preparing for an electrical exam or not, dude. We're just going to learn the NEC a little bit better today. We're going to dissect things. But if you are preparing for an electrical exam, and I am known for breaking down questions and being able to give insight on things. But before I do that, I do want to answer. I have things beeping here. I don't know what's beeping. I do want to answer a question that came in from somebody this morning. So it might be watching. Let me see if I can find this question. I didn't have it geared up to put it on the screen because it came in and I just noticed the thing. So let me see if I can find this question. Bear with me for a second, guys. Let me find this gentleman's question so I can answer it for him. Okay. All right. So it's a Fast Track student that's in our program. I can tell he is because I recognize the name, even though we have thousands of students. I do recognize certain people. He says, hello, Paul. I need some clarification on 430.6 A1 and A2. He says, and this is for motors. Okay. We're going to get into our lesson today. We're going to look at exam prep questions. If you got any questions, you can put them in the comments. I'll try to answer them. But I want to answer this question. It says, Paul, he's seeing that 430.6 A1 and A2, it says, A1 says to use the table values at the end of the chapter for ampacity of conductors, current rating of switches, and current rating of branch circuits, short circuit ground fault protection. So for motors, 430, we're going to use what? We're going to use 430.248, 249, and 250, all those in the back, right? And that's where we're going to get the FLC, and that's what we're going to do to size things like the short circuit ground fault protection for motors. We're going to use that to size the conductors under 430.22. We're going to do that to size motors for feeder applications in 430.24, short circuit ground fault protection in 430.52. But he goes on to say, but A2 says to use the nameplate value for the same things. No, it doesn't, Benjamin. It does not. And we're going to go look at it. Okay. So he watched my video And so in the video, there are very specific motors that we're using in the video. So they're obviously going to be using FLC. But it's one of those things where it's like, no, it's not as it appears. So I want to go to the code and show you. So here's 430.6 and here's A1. Okay. And this, of course, tells you that you use the table values for other than motors built for low speed, that is less than 1200 RPM, or high torques. And for multi-speed motors, okay, the values given in 430, 247, 248, 249. And again, I don't know why I don't have the entire screen on here, so bear with me while I make an adjustment, because I really do want the entire screen on here. Hold on. I want to make sure I get everything in here. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so it goes on. It may be harder to see, but there you go. So it says right here in 248, 249, and 250 shall be used instead of the actual current rating marked on the motor's nameplate. Okay, so for ampacitive conductor, current rating of switches, current rating of short circuit ground power. Okay, so that's what we have. So that, Benjamin, is what we use to size all those things. Now, if you go down here and you look at number 2, it says nameplate values. And it says the motor's nameplate value, current rating, shall be used to determine the values of the following. Overload protection, right? 430.32, overload protection. And for those motors that we just saw that were excluded from using the FLC, it says for motors built for low speed and for high torque, those type of things. So these are the things that were omitted up here in 1. So this is your general. And then down here, it reminds you, okay, that you use a nameplate for overload protection, which we already knew that in 430.32, right? We already knew that. And of course, down here for those low speed or high torque motors, then we're going to use the nameplate. Or for large motors exceeding the values in part, what is that? Part 14 shall use a nameplate rating for the conductor sizing. Okay, so they are not the same. Right? So he was saying that they are the same. They are not. Different types of motors. Now, for the most part, the motors that you're going to use pretty much every day of the week, especially for exam prep and things like that, they're going to be just normal motors, squirrel cage motors, things like that are going to be using the FLC value in 430.248, 249, 250, those areas. Okay, but just remember, for overload sizing, 430.32. Okay, you're going to use the nameplate for that. Now, is there any time where we're going to use the nameplate for conductor sizing for motors? Absolutely. If you have intermittent duty, things like that. And where do we see that? That is in 430.22E. And so I'll just bring it there so we can wrap out this for Benjamin, who submitted that question. So Benjamin, you're going to look for motors right here. And then when would you use the nameplate? Right here. If they're other than a continuous duty motor. So on an exam, they're going to have to tell you it's continuous duty, or they'll tell you that it is what? That it is an intermittent duty, short time duty, periodical duty, or periodic duty, or varying duty. And then you would apply these percentages down here. But these percentages are going to be from the nameplate, not from the FLC, okay? All right, so hopefully that answered that for Benjamin. And that's what we do here at Coffee Hour. If you got questions, I'm more than happy to break them down. That's what we're here for. So whether you're a lover or a hater, doesn't matter. I welcome all people, and we try to break things down in the code, make it easier for you to understand. Okay, so let's get into some examples. We don't have any questions. Again, what do we have here? Eric says, have you heard feedback from guys who took the NEC test? I get feedback all the time from people that are successful in their exams, and they send me texts, and I love to live vicariously through the students, or what I say family members who go through our program, because again, your investment in our program is not just helping you. Obviously, you're investing in me, you're investing in my family, and as I transition to where I've been doing this for 39 years, Electrical Code Academy becomes my main focus. It feeds my family, and so again, your support it is major, and I'm very appreciative of that. Whether you're buying our coins, And I get it, but you have no idea how much we do appreciate it. So again, yeah, I love hearing from students all over the country and their successes, that type of thing. I love it. Okay. Let's see, Adam. What do we got, Adam? Adam says, in the 2023 NEC, Cone Cone is available for download or laptop full availability. So the NEC is available in Link. Link, you go to nfpa.org, you'll see Link. And Link is what you use. So you can't get PDFs of the NECs anymore because people would steal it and share it. So now we recommend is you get the link, and you can use that on any device, laptop, desktop. I use it. Downside, I wouldn't recommend it for exam prep because it's electronic and you can't use electronics in exam. And two, it doesn't have an index. So it doesn't allow you to use the index to look things up. And you'll see that today. We don't get the luxury of using the index. You can use it and I'll make suggestions, but you don't get that luxury when it comes to the electronic because it doesn't have an index. I wish they would add it. And I keep saying that I'm going to scan it in. And I keep saying that and I don't do it. One reason is my scanner here at the office sucks. So I got to get a new scanner. Anybody got recommendations on a high-end scanner? The one I bought from Texas, I didn't do a lot of scanning, so it sucks. So yeah, at the end of the day, you don't get the index. So it makes it hard to study. Plus, again, you can't take it in for an exam, okay? Also, I should mention, it is not working over on the coffee hour over on Fast Track's Tube. So we're going to have to sort that out and see what's going on with that because the developers can't something is wrong with the stream. So we can't get that sorted out. So that's why we're opening it up on all of the platforms, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, and everything, because we can't seem to figure out that bug over there. But we will. We'll figure it out. Let's see here. Estrada, buenos dias from New Jersey. Thanks for joining me. New Jersey. You got any drones flying over? What's up, Adam's got his pint of coffee kicking in. There you go. You need it. When I get talking, you need a pint of coffee. All right, so let's go on and look at the code book real quick. Let's go look at some exam prep questions and dissect them. How about some fun? Now, remember, you can put your answers in the comments, give a code reference. It doesn't matter here. We're not going to be overly technical about it this morning, but we do want to, we're going to look at some exam questions and kind of try to dissect them and see what we can find out. All right. So here we go. So this is the first exam prep question that we have on the agenda today. It says, a legally required standby system shall have a standby power ready within blank seconds after normal power fails. Okay, so let's think about this one. So we have different types of standbys, right? We have emergency, which is, which obviously makes sense, right? If you had emergency, it needs to come on very quickly. We have legally required, which may not be required by emergency, but may be required by your local jurisdiction. Okay, there might be other rules that requires that. Okay, makes sense. And then you've got regular standby, which is like what you'd have for a house, which is, your generator. And we'd like to think that's emergency, and we call that thing emergency sometimes, but it is far from an emergency. So it's, unless it's, powering the mother-in-law and you don't care for the mother-in-law, then maybe that's what you want. You want that optional standby. I say that, but I've never had a mother-in-law that I dislike. But anyway, different types of legally required systems. So in the National Electrical Code, and we learned this in our Fast Tracks program, but in the National Electrical Code, you could go to the index and you could be looking under standby power. You could dissect this and look under legally required because that is actually a thing. So you can look up legally required standby systems in the index. Get used to that index. Again, like I said, I don't have it. I'm going to make a note to myself to go on and get a PDF version of the index. I'm going to have to create one. Nobody's volunteered to do it for me. So I'm going to have to create one so that we can use the index because we're going to make Tuesday exam prep a regular thing because I'm getting so many people asking me for it and they like how I teach exam prep. So I want to make sure I give people what they want. And that's what I said. That's what coffee hour is all about. All right. So at least we'll make Tuesday that day. Exam prep Tuesday. How about that? So let's look at this one. So legally required standby. So what we would say, now there's also things that we can remember that in a table of contents, also in your NEC, since this is a specific type of system, let's go and see if we have something in the table of contents. So I'm going to go here and let's see if I can even get, I don't even know that we have a table of contents here. Well, the best that we can get is here where it's broken into chapters, right? So this is link. So we're bound by the limitations of link. Okay, not a whole lot I can do about it. So if you go down to chapter 7, which is special condition, you're going to see, and you'll see this in the front. You'll see there's emergency. You'll see that there's a legally required standby, and then you'll see this is Article 702, which is optional. Okay, that type of thing. So Edgar says, "Oh yeah, there you go." He likes that exam prep. So in this case right now, for me, if I was doing the book and I was in the table of contents and I saw 701, I'm just going to go to 701 because I know that 701 can't be large, and I'm looking for something specific. Okay, what I'm looking for is the seconds or the time that it transfers from power failure to the legally required standby. That's what I'm specifically. So I'm going to be bold scanning, especially I'm not going to be probably in this one. I'm not going to be flipping through the index much. I know that there is and you'll learn it in a good structured program. You're going to learn that there's emergencies, Article 700, legally required 701, optional 702. Hammer those in your head. That's kind of one of those things that you just remember because those are low hanging fruit on exams. All right. So we're going to go here to the code. And I'm going to go right to 701. And bold scanning, for those that always ask about bold scanning is just, we know that we're talking about, in this question, a transfer of power. We know we're talking about seconds. Seconds is a key component because obviously we know that in our question, it gave us options, 10 seconds, 60 seconds, 90 seconds, 120 seconds, that type of thing. Now, if you already know what the emergency is required, the time factor, then you can mark that off, and now you have a 33% chance of getting it right because you just got rid of the one you knew. And we know that emergency is 10 seconds. So we got that off. So now we only have 3 other options. Okay? We had the 60, the 90, and the 120. Okay? That's how you make sure that you get rid of things that you know clearly are not the answer. Right? And get it out of the way so you actually increase your odds. All right. So in our case, let's go here. So we're going to be bold scanning. And what we're looking for, and hold on, let me make sure I bring up my thing over here. Okay. So what we're going to do is we'll be bold scanning. Okay. Nothing in there about seconds, nothing in there about transfer, nothing. This is bold scanning, by the way. Capacity and rating. Okay. Nothing in there about that. Transfer equipment. Okay. Getting closer, but nothing about the time factor. Signal. Okay. Ground faults, okay. Signs, okay. Markings, labeling, no. Okay. All right, now we're getting to circuitry, okay. No. Nothing here about that. Okay, sources of power. Okay, so this is talking about, okay, so I have normal power, and then I have other sources of power, whether it's a generator or whatever, that is going to be the legally required, okay. So we know we're talking about the transfer of power. So in your mind, you're breaking these down. And so then I'm looking at it, I'm just simply going to bold scan it and look for, all right, boom, I immediately saw seconds. Okay. So here it says current supplies shall be such that in the event of a failure of normal supply power, ding, 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 it says, okay, it goes on to say the legally required standby power will be available within the time required for the application, but not to exceed 60 seconds. So it could be quicker than 60, but as far as we're concerned for an exam, it is 60 seconds. So we go back to the question, and obviously 60 seconds. There. Now, we can also look at our reference here, and there it is. And by the way, these are the questions that are in your database. If you're in the basic and enhanced program over in Fast Track. So there's literally hundreds and hundreds of these, but this just kind of how you can see it, okay? All right, go to the next one. Y'all are doing great. All right, what's the next one? Although nobody answered it, so I'm going to say you're doing great, but y'all are awful quiet this morning. So you're going to have to blow off that code book. Got to get that dust off of it, folks. All right. All right. Next, the bending radius for the inner edge of AC cable shall not be less than blank times the diameter of the cable. Okay. So you might know this. So this is a good example of on an exam is you might already know this question, this answer. And you might say, dude, I don't need to look this up. I know it. Well, in that scenario, y'all have heard me talk about the 3-wave methods that I do when I'm teaching people how to prepare for an electrical exam, 3-wave methods. And if you haven't watched that video, it's over on Fast Track's Tube. It's also available, I believe, still on our YouTube channel. Is that you have to go through when you sit for that exam, in order to get rid of those nerves, what you really need to do is the moment you sit down, you go through the little process of the sky is blue and all that in order to kind of get you familiar with the checking of the system and marking things. Once you feel comfortable and you're ready to start, when you start, you need to just go through, answer every question that you just know right off the top of your head. You don't have to look it up. If for a minute you stutter and you go, I think I'm right. The moment you say that, I think I'm right, then just electronically mark it and move on to the next question, because now you've put that seed of doubt, okay? And so what we're trying to do is go through the exam quickly first and answer everything that we know right away so that we're reducing the number of questions and we get more time for each question. So I would use the electronic if you're doing an electronic exam. If you're not and you're doing the kind that you're writing on pen and paper type of thing, then they give you scratch paper. If you're going to pass one up, make sure you write down that question so you can come back to it later, okay? So that's it, the writing one down. But that's why they give you scratch paper for also calculations. But if you have an electronic one, if you see a question and you know the answer right away, answer it, okay? Because usually your first gut answer is right. Now, you might, as you're scrolling through later, you might see the answer somewhere else and you might say, ooh, I got to change it. But I'm telling you, statistically, mark it and move on. So as you go through it now, what happens is after you get past that first wave, you got all these questions that you checked because you didn't know the answer, right? So that's the second wave. And then you go through the second wave and you spend a minute to a minute and a half on those questions. If you don't answer it, you leave it checked and you go to the next one. Because then when you answer one of them, you uncheck it and then you keep going. And then you have that third wave, which is all the remaining ones that you have checked. And every time and in that third wave, you're going to answer it before you move on to the next one. Okay. So that's a process of how you do the exam. And you're building up time as you do it, but we call it the 3-wave method. And that's the best way to prepare. And if you want to watch that video, it is definitely over in Fast Track's Tube. Just search for 3-wave method or go to our YouTube channel and search for 3-wave method and you'll get that video. I think we still have it up there for free. All right, get back to the question. So I have John jumped in and he says it's 320.24. So John knows that AC cable is Article 320. And we also know that we could go to the index and look under armored cable and sure there's bending radius. But John, I'm sure also, because John's in our program, he also knows that AC cable is a very short article, couple pages, if that. So bold scanning can be your friend if you don't know the answer right away, because bold scanning is going to help you hit it. What am I looking for? Bending radius, bend, bend, bend. Those are key trigger words, bend, bend, radius, that type of thing. So, and then of course the answers, which have 5, 8, 10, and 12. Those are the things that you're going to lock here as you're bold scanning. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to bold scan it, and we're going to get it. So let's go back to the code. All right, so we're going to go to 320 because we know in our studying, structured study program, by the way, there's a difference between just flipping through the code book and actually getting a structured program that forces you to go in and out of the code book. Okay, whether you like our fast tracks or not, it's designed for you to go in and out of the code book by following the chevrons. We're trying to get you more familiar with flipping through the code book. So inherently, that's what it's doing. All right, so here we got this bold scan. So right? That has nothing to do with bending, nothing to do with bending, nothing to do with bending. I've been here only a couple seconds, nothing to do with bending, nothing to do with bending, and yeah, nothing to do with bending. Nope. Bending radius, boom, okay? 5 times. I see the word diameter. All those things locking in. I focused on it. So that's why I tell people preparing for an exam is a mental state. It's not just buying a code book and say, I'm going to study and flip. Now, some people are just good test takers. Some people pass, even if they barely study. How many of you had somebody in school that was like that? That you studied your ass off and they barely studied and they always got A's. I was one of those guys. I barely studied. I hated school, except for vocational part of it or going over to electrical and do that type of thing. I loved math. I hated English, as y'all folks can probably tell. But at the end of the day, I always got good grades, and it used to make my friends, it drive them crazy because they'd have to study. A friend of mine named Mike Shackelford, he used to have to study so freaking hard. And me, I was like, dude, I was busy spitballing and goofing off in school. I was that goof clown. But every time it came time for an exam, no problem. And I don't know what it was, whether I could just retain it, reading it one time or whatever, but everybody's different. And so it would tick them off. But what happens is it allows you to be able to look at a question and dissect the important pieces, lock them in the brain. And then when you're looking at the question, it just comes out. So use the question, use the answers, use specific key topics in the question, and that is how you dissect it. That type of thing. All right. So Anthony's late to the party. Okay. You was listening to, as long as you were listening to an episode, you're all good. And Anthony's probably listened to our podcast, which, by the way, lick the finger. Okay. So by the way, all of you can get our free mobile app over on our website. When you get the mobile app, it will look like, whenever it loads, it will look like that. And all you got to do is go up here to podcast, hit podcast, and it will pop up the two links to the Master the NEC podcast or the Let's Ask Paul. Then you just click Master the NEC podcast, and boom, it gives you this amazing Spreaker player. And you get to listen to all the podcasts. You can even stream them to Bluetooth devices. Anyway, all available in the mobile app. You ain't got to go hunting it anywhere. You ain't got to go to Spotify. Yeah, all right there. And this is free. I'm not going to charge you for a mobile app. Who the hell would ever do that, right? Okay, so bending radius. Let's get back to the question. Let's get to the code. And let's see here. We did the code. And let's see here. Okay, so we saw that it was 5 times the diameter of the AC cable, right? Now, here's an interesting tidbit. If you get questions on the exam about bending radius, right? Then remember that typically for the cables, it is always dot 24. Okay, so some things you just lock in your mind, like dot 30 is securing and supporting for cable assemblies, dot 24, bending radius, that type of thing. So some little dot 10 is used as permitted, dot 12 is used as not permitted. Okay, so when you're in chapter 3, you'll kind of get used to some of those little things that you'll remember just like that. Okay. Doesn't mean you have to commit them to memory, but it's kind of those things that you just get used to. All right, let's get back to the question. So we saw that our answer was 5 times. And again, you got your code reference, boom, right there, 320.24. So let's see here. John had give us the right answer. So John. Good job, John. Obviously, I'm going to brag on him. He's in the Fast Tracks program, doing very well. All right, go to another question. All right, next question. A conductor carrying 30 amperes at 0.5 ohms will lose what as far as its wattage? Okay, all right, so let's see here. Oops, hold on. I forgot to turn off my thing, and people are trying to connect to me. I don't know why they're trying to connect to me. Anyway, okay, so let's see what we're doing here. All right, so we have 30. And we're like, okay, what's the value do we do in watts? So this is, we have to think of, all right, we're solving for watts, right? We have 30 amps and we have 0.5 ohms, okay? So we're solving for watts. So how do we do it? PIE, okay? We're trying to solve for power, okay? So 30 times 0.5, all right, oops, hold on. Am I not getting enough solar? I'm not getting enough solar. What the hell's going on with my thing here? What? My calculator's not working. It's a calculator. Hold on. Calculator's not working here. The freak? What? Yeah, you got to be crapping me. All right, we're gonna do it. We have to do it on paper. My calculator's not working. Okay, I can throw it across the room, and that would do no good, right? Let's see what we got. Comments real quick. Oh, Frank, welcome into the welcome into the show. Thank you, Frank. Always there to join. Real quickly before I work this out. Anthony says, I'm doing a master review right now. I've written the engineer up for 16 items thus far. Oh, you're doing a review right now? Okay, yeah, well, I remember doing plan review. I used to read all, tear people up when it came to the plan review part of it, right? And really, it was one of those things where, it was a matter of the, all the things that they had to correct, and then they would submit the corrections to me. And I would be like, okay. All right, so in this one right here, we look at it and we say, okay, I've got amps, got amps, but I don't have any voltage. So let's see here. So I'm going to see what all I can solve. So I want to see if I can find the EUIR. All right, so I want to see if I can't find, I've got the amps and I got the resistance. So I'm going to use, okay, there's our ohms. Shit, you can't see it. There's our ohms wheels. I can't write on the screen. So first thing I'm going to do is try to solve and find out what voltage we're dealing with here. So I've got 30 amps. I'm going to multiply that by, remember the EIR, the pi, E on the top, do a line. Then from the center line, come down. So it's EIR, right? And then we got pi wheel, which is P over I times E, right? Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do 30, and I'm going to do that times the resistance was 0.5. And that gives me 15, okay? So I've got 15 volts, okay? So now I'm going to do pi, solve for pi. So I'm going to do I, which again was 30. And I'm going to do that times 15. And that is, I can show this to you, 450, okay? So this is a unique one on an exam because I've got to do two things, right? I'm going to use, and I wish I could show this. It just really doesn't show up really well. As you can see, guys, maybe y'all can see it. Oh, you know what? Let me come back real quick and I'll show you. Just for those that get those kind of questions that are theory questions, whatnot on an exam. So see, I had the two typical PIE, which is your pi, and then I had the EIR. These are very basic ohms wheels. And so you can write these down on scratch paper when you sit down. Usually they let you do this, right? And do all that type of scenario. They'll let you fill it all out and do that type of thing. Or some exams like Texas, when you do the calculation part, they actually give you some ohms wheels, that type of things. But this is a very basic ohm wheel here. So I had to solve and find voltage first. So I found the voltage. And then once I found the voltage in this system, then I can calculate out the power, okay? So let's see, outdoors has some answers here, 12, 15, 15. I'm not sure which one you got. Which one is it, outdoor? You got 12, and then you're at 15, and then you're at 15. Okay, so he says 15 watts, okay? All right, so let's go to the question. Oops, sorry, let's go to the question. Very typical question on an exam for the theory part. All right, let me give you some tips real quick about theory questions on an exam. Typically, there's only going to be a couple. So don't lose your mind trying to solve those. Those would be like that question you can't answer right away. So let me give you some more tips because that's what we're here for, right? On an exam, if you're doing a journeyman exam, usually what they do is they mix calculations and theory into the exam questions. There's only going to be a couple. So if you come to a calculation, and it's like Texas with a master's, it's two separate exams. That's different. But if you're in a journeyman exam, let's say, or even a master that has both calculations and theory and just regular code lookup all in one exam, then when you're doing that wave method, guys, the first thing you want to do is if you get a calculation, go on and mark it and skip it. Don't spend no time on it unless it's so freaking easy. because you're going to have more time in the second wave. Right now, we're trying to build up time so that we're not in that time crunch, so that clock is not ticking. So skip the calculations and anything that would be theory that you're going to have to scratch the brain, because this is kind of a calculation, but it's really theory. Skip it and say, okay, I'm going to get this in the next wave. I'm trying to answer as many as I can answer. That's the goal. That's what you should be pushing for on an exam, okay? But in this case right here, you had to use 2 different formulas in order to come up and find out what the wattage was, okay? So take you back here. So it says it's this one. Let's see here, right there. But I think we saw that it's this one. So I'm going to click this one. And boom, there it is. And that is just electrical theory, okay? I knew what you were saying, Outdoor. I use the opportunity to tease anybody I can. And but no, I get you. But you can see how quickly somebody might just choose 15 on an exam because they didn't do the next step. So there was 2 steps there. In Texas, for example, on a calculation, believe it or not, guys, that's called a 2-step math question. And so basically that counts as a 2 steps. So that would be on like a master's calculation. That is considered a 2-step math question because it wasn't just one thing you had to do. You had 2 calculations that you had to perform. Okay. And everybody did notice calculators working because when I sat it down, it obviously can get more light than when I was doing this, and it must be weak. I don't know. She's working. So probably not because I just threw it down. So that probably ends that. So, all right, let's see here. Anthony says, Paul, as I took my E3 recently, these questions you shared were on my exam. Yeah. And hey, folks, here's some surprise news for you. A lot of the questions in our database that we have in some form or fashion do appear on electrical exams, as well as a lot of our competency reviews. Now, I can tell you in our Fast Tracks program, the competency reviews are going to be much tougher than what you would ever experience on an electrical exam because I think that you need to be over prepared. And again, people ask me all the time, do you write a course for journeyman and masters and separately? And you know why I don't do that? Because, I mean, obviously I could separate the 2. I wouldn't feel like I was a good steward of your money. You buy one course, you learn the NEC. I don't care whether it's journeyman or master. Again, if you study, then you're going to be okay on either exam. So that's why we don't break it up. We just teach the code flat out. I don't try to get in those nuances of charging you money for a journeyman and then charging you money for a master, okay? And with our new courses, they don't expire. So, hey, I mean, you can use it to get your journeymans. And then when time comes around to get your masters, boom, okay? Yeah, competency reviews are difficult, especially Unit 8, 11, and 13, dude. Those will kick your... See, do I have a beep? I have a beep sensor. They will kick your... So I'm just saying, okay? All right. All right, let's go back to another question. I'm going to thank y'all. Y'all let me know if y'all like Exam Prep Tuesday. Because I have a lot of people that like this format. And I also find that I can share a lot of just information with you. All right, so let's go to the next question. Okay, next question, folks. Blank cable is permitted to be installed as direct burial without any other protection. Okay, what do y'all think? Blank cable shall be permitted to be installed as direct burial. So it's talking about cable. Okay, so it's not necessarily talking about single insulated conductors, right? That's my observation. It's talking about a cable assembly. All of you probably are very aware of what type of cables. David was right up on there. David, didn't see you in there. CMECP's in the house. Hold on, I got David. I got. Hold on. Wait a minute. Okay, got that for you. Thank you. John threw it out there as well. Okay, so of these options, you can do deductive reasoning and answer this one. And this is an example I use on an exam. If you're sitting for an exam and you get this question as one of the first wave questions, dude, you shouldn't have to look it up. if you're an electrical guy and you've been doing it for any amount of time, whether you're apprentice, this is a good example. And these do appear on exams. This is one where you should say, dude, answer and go. Obviously, you know, non-metallic sheet cable is the dry allocation only product. SE cable is above ground product only. And THHN has no rating to be direct buried anyway. Although typically THHN is also THWN-2, okay? But it can be in a raceway underground, but not direct buried. So this is one of those no-brainers where you're like, dude, I don't even have to look it up. But we do know what article is, because this is always good to train the brain, is what article is UF? It's Article 340. And of course, you can look up underground feeder and branch circuits in the index. Okay, and then you can look for uses permitted and uses not permitted. I would say this is under the uses permitted in dot 10, right? So that's where you would go for that, okay? And you get the uses not permitted and uses permitted. So dot 10 is going to be permitted uses. So if I were to go to 340, just to go there for craps and giggles, and I'll share this, 340.10 uses permitted, and here we go. For use underground, including direct burial in the earth. Boom. Okay. All right. Also for use in wet, dry, and corrosive locations, UF, which takes the place of NMC. If anybody's ever wondered what NMC was, no manufacturer makes an NMC. So the substitute for that is UFB. Does anybody know what the B means? The B means that the insulation on the conductors inside of the cable are rated for 90. That's what allows you to use the 90 for adjustment and corrections. For example, in 334.80. But at the end of the day, you still can't exceed the value under the 60-degree column. So then again, it's just for adjustment and corrective purposes. But that B does tell you that the conductor's insulation is rated 90. And this happened all the way back in the 80s, 84, I believe, where we had older wiring that was 60-degree rated insulation, and they were taking new luminaires and connecting onto it that had 90-degree rated insulation. But the reason they were doing that is because the luminaires were getting much bigger lamps on it and much more power at that time, which generate more heat rises. So the 90-degree whips that were on the luminaire, back then we just called light fixture, those could handle the excess heat, the added heat. But the wiring that came out of the box that was in the walls could not, and it started having problems. So they started mandating that, and I believe it was 84, they started mandating that the NM cable be 90-degree rated insulation. That's where the dash B came from, okay? It's just a little history. See, that's what you get when you come to coffee hour. You get a little bit of history, right? But if you don't believe me, then all you got to do is go to what? The NEC. NEC will help you. All you got to do is go right here, 334.112, and it tells you right here, conductor insulation shall be rated 90 degrees. Again, even though we're limited to the 60 degree, for just, for at the end of the day, it's still rated 90-degree insulation. And again, that's why you see this little note down here, informational note, and it reminds you, NMB or NMC-B, but again, nobody makes NMC, because it's basically easier to just use UFB, and us manufacturers don't want to make the NMC. Just sharing with you the facts. All right. Why we want to make two products? Just use the UFB. All right. Y'all get me. Okay. So let's go to the code question. Y'all are doing great this morning. So right there's our answer. There's our reference. 340.10, item number 1. And again, you could have gone to the index, but this is one of those no-brainer ones, right? Where you just go, dude, no-brainer, okay? Now, why do we use the 60 if it's actually rated for 90? Well, I could cop out and say that it's basically because that's what the NEC says. But basically, the majority of the time, non-metallic sheath cable is going to be embedded in some type of thermal insulation. It's going to be encased into the walls and things like that. And then it's just a matter of nobody doing any testing otherwise later, okay? And so all of the testing that we've done in UL 719 is geared around the temperature limitations and that type of thing. So that's why it just states it in 334.80. Now, could us manufacturers get together and say, you know what, it's time to get rid of this damn 60-degree thing? We could, but I'm going to be honest with you, and maybe I'll do that on an episode. I'll research the real in-depth history because I love doing that sometimes for product stuff. I don't like to. I'm not a code historian. You know what I'm saying? I don't like to go back and see what the code was in 1947. I have no interest because I wasn't even born. I'm about today, but I do like to look up things like why did non-metallic sheath cable get this and what changed over the years. And maybe it's because I work for a wire and cable manufacturer. I don't know, but I love that kind of history. So maybe I'll go look it up, but I can tell you this much. Most of the testing that gets done is based on the thermal aspects of it. And so it's just been locked at around 60 degrees. So, and it uses that ampacity values. But I can tell you manufacturers like to be conservative, right? Like the ampacity values in the code, 31016, I can promise you that those conductors can handle more than that. You can't because of the NEC, but I can promise you that that insulation today is way more robust than the insulation that we had many years ago. Do us manufacturers want to change the ampacities on that table? Absolutely not. Why? Because it's conservative and we don't want wires burning up in people's homes. We don't want them melting down. We have historical data, right? And we don't want to get away from that type of thing. John says, I mean, I guess if you're in the business of selling copper, it makes sense to rate it lower and sell more copper. That's not the reason, John. You hater. Wait, what is it? Why do we use 9? Actually, I answered that question. All right. John, why are you trying to be a hater this morning? That is not the reason us manufacturers didn't get together way back 3, 4, 5, 6 decades ago and said, if that was the case, we would be pushing voltage drop even more because that pushes bigger conductors. Now, there are reasons to do that, and we can talk about that in another episode, why voltage drop actually, since it's a recommendation, but really is important. I could explain that, but then that would take up my last 14 minutes, so I don't want to do that. But maybe we'll get into that. But don't be a hater, John. All right, next question. All right, let's go to the code. Let's go look at another question. Okay, here we go. Next one. Fixture wires shall not be smaller than blank AWG. Hold on here. Let me get rid of this dude right here. Okay, there he's gone. Okay, got rid of, I guess somebody sent me an instant message. Okay, what to do here? All right, we're talking fixture wire. So one thing you could do is stop, drop, and roll over to index and look under fixture wires. Okay. You also could go to the table of contents and see that there is a specific article dealing with fixture wires. And so either your flavor. I will tell you, fixture wires, once you understand the article, you'll realize it is not very big. Okay. And we're looking for size requirements. So you'll see something when you bold scan that'll say minimum sizing or sizing. And then you have all these answers you can look at, 10, 12, 16, and 18. Now, first thing me and you'd know right now, just looking at this, if I was in an exam and I wanted to increase my odds, 10 and 12 are typically not used as fixture wire. It's typically not. Typically what we're going to see is potentially 16 and 18, much smaller, because we're talking fixture wire, that little wire that comes down in your swag chain, those type of things. So we're looking at going, well, I can have a 50-50 chance right away by just getting rid of 10 and 12. Right? But fixture wire is not a really big article. Do y'all know what article it is? It's article 402. Okay, so let's kind of go to the NEC really quick and remember what we're looking for. Not smaller than. Remember these sizes. Lock all that stuff in your brain. This is a sizing question, minimum size. All right, so let's go to the code. All right, so if we were going to the table of contents, for example, and you're just looking over the table of contents, and you'll go down and what you're going to see is article 402, fixture wire. Okay. Or you go to the index, you'll see under fixture wire, it may say size. It may say minimum size. I don't have the index here, but I promise you guys, since we're going to make this a regular thing on Tuesdays, I will get this index. I will get it worked out. Obviously, NFPA is not going to help me, and they don't really care about me. I am detrimental to them. I think they think that, but I support them. But I don't know. The whole different story. Sergeant doesn't care much for me. So anyway, so at the end of the day, either way, you could probably find the answer. So let's go to 402, and we're going to bold scan. Okay, scope. Okay, we know what fixture wire is. Okay, other articles that are applicable. Okay, the types. Okay, all the different types of fixture wire here. And we also happen to see sizing over here. Look at some, there's everything that seems 18, 18, 18A. It looks like everything's 18, although we do have some 12 and 10s over here, but we're looking at minimums. I see 18 a lot, but that's not what we're looking for. Ampacities. Well, it wasn't an ampacity question. So we're not going to stop there. Minimum size. Took us a couple seconds. Boom, 18 gauge. We're not wasting any time. We're getting right back to the question. Boom, 18 gauge. And John was right on it. Good job, John. Because he's cheating because he is a fast track student. And you know what? Knows his stuff. There you go. Outdoor Man. Outdoor Man. By the way, I love that series. I love that old Outdoor Man series. Joe, I'm assuming you watched that. All right. So anyway, good job. All right, let's do another one. Okay. The service entrance conductors for a single family dwelling with a 122 40 volt 200 amp overcurrent protected device as the main disconnect shall require at a minimum blank AWG copper conductors. Great exam question. And people will say, I don't have enough information to answer this question. I've had people that are educators say, there's not enough information here to answer this question. The hell there ain't. Everything you need to answer this question is right here. One, we know that they said it was a single family dwelling. We know that it said it's a 122 40 volt system. We know that they said it was a 200 amp overcurrent device, right? And we know that that is the service disconnect, okay? So I want to know what the minimum is. Now, you could probably stop and be one of those guys that say, okay, smart Alec, I'm just going to go to 31016, find a conductor that can handle 200 amps, boom, wham, bam, and I'm done. Well, that wouldn't be the minimum, but it would be okay, right? And I believe that, what would that be? That would be like 3/0 copper or something like that. I'm not sure. We'll go look, but, so you might say, wham, bam, thank you, ma'am, I'm done. Well, now, there's a little more nuances to this question. John, it's almost cheating having him in the room. There you go. John's giving us an answer right there. Fast track student, all up on that. I'm going to stop saying fast track student because we're colleagues. You are learning the code at a much higher level in a structured program. We're equals. We're code people. And that's the whole concept of it, because it's different than grabbing a code book and just flipping it. You may pass your exam, but then when you go back out in the field, you don't know squat because you just flipped. But if you go through a structured plan like John's going through, you learn the code. And when you're out in the field, it makes life so much easier. That is the difference between buying DVDs or buying a $40 book off of Amazon with code questions in it. A structured program really, and it's not, I didn't reinvent the wheel. It takes you out of the course, into the code, into the course, into the code, into the course, into the code, and then it hits you with questions, then it hits you with competency reviews. Boom, 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 bam, 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 bam. That's what it's trying to do, okay? All right, so let's go. Boy, there is, and I promise you folks out there, no, you're not. John, you are not ruining it, my friend. It's impressive. I love it. You keep it up. You're getting something out of it, and that's important. So don't stop. You're not ruining anything, my friend. You're doing amazing. Love it. All right, so code-wise, let's go to the code. So in this case, if we're looking at that question, then we go, okay. So first thing I'm going to realize is that I'm talking about the 83% rule, right? That's the first thing that should come into your mind. If you go through our program, you're like, okay, but let's just say I went to the NEC. And I'm going to show you why this is important. So I'm just going to go to the NEC, and I'm going to go to 31016. This is a great question to go to. And I'll go 31016, and we go, hey, Paul, I'm in the field, dude. I don't care about your freaking code book. That's what I hear from people all the time. You don't do it anymore, Paul. You're not a doer. You're not an electrician. You just teach it. You're one of those that can teach it, can't do it. As if I didn't do it for 35 freaking years and got the cuts and scars to prove it and built 2 electrical contracting businesses. Don't mind me. I'm just teaching you code. Okay, again, that's my haters. I got my share of them. All right, so let's go to here. And we'll look. So just for craps and giggles, obviously we're over 100 amps, so we're going to be in the 75 degree. We're very familiar with 110.14c, right? You and me. All right. So we come down here, and so you would look at it and say, well, most electricians would, and you can't see it. You can't see it, but over here it's 3/0 right here. Okay. A little bit of not letting me see it here. Hold on for a second. I'm going to change that because it drives me crazy when that happens. So bear with me. Okay. There we go. So you see right here, it's 3/0 and it's 200. So a lot of people in the field would just go, I'm just going to do 3/0 and let her go. I'm a frugal guy, and I might lose the bid over somebody else with the price of wire today, right? So I'm sitting there going, well, wait a minute. It said minimum. This is okay. I mean, I could run 3/0. And then you get those people out there. All right, bear with me, folks. You may be them, and I won't offend you, but I'm an equal opportunity offender. You have some people out there that'll say, dude, I never do the minimum, Paul. The code's the minimum. I always go over the minimum. This is a good example. So maybe you use 3/0. You're thinking, I don't do the minimums. I go over it. Well, you're going to lose the bid to me because I'm going to use what the NEC says. But if you want to go bigger, you want to do that, you want to charge your customer more, you want to do that, you do it. Historically, if there was a problem with it, the code would have changed. People would be submitting it. Code panels would change it. It's historically, there's so much diversity. I was funny because I saw Steven 120 do a video of showing all the luminaires on in a house and what the amp draw was, and it was under 5 amps, and he had everything on. There is so much diversity in a dwelling, for example, that this rule makes sense. It does. So again, you can do what you want, but again, you do what you want. Yeah. Anthony says, those people are annoying. Says, I always never do the minimum. I do everything above code. Well, good for you. That's between you and your customer. It's got nothing to do with an exam, which this question asked the minimum. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it can get annoying, but I get it. That's there. And their reasoning is, as you say, they don't understand the code, how it works, and why it's a minimum safety standard. People hate when I say that too, minimum safety standard. They hate it. It causes their head to go crazy. And they say, well, what do you mean by minimum? Because if you do it per the NEC, then it's going to be as minimally safe, but safe, as you can get. If you want to go above it, then what's your rationale? You have to negotiate that with your customer if they want to pay more for you to go above it, or maybe you just feel more warm and fuzzy going above. That's up to you. I'm not here to judge you, but why, right? All right, so let's go solve this thing because all of you are throwing out those references and you're absolutely right. So I could go with a 3/0 if I wanted, but that doesn't answer our question. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at 310.12. And for you older code folks, it's 310.15 B6 or B7, depending on what code cycle you're in. But it has been 310.12 for the last 2 code cycles. So it's a single phase dwelling. Remember our question says that's what we got. All right. In our case, it was a 1-family dwelling. Okay. It was a single phase and it was 12240. Okay. Then you are permitted to size in accordance with 310.12A through D. Permitted. So could you go and use the 3/0 for 200 amps that's in 310.16? Could you? Absolutely you could. If you want, right? That's what you want to do. But you're permitted to use 310.12A through D. All right? So this one is one we're working with, is the service right here. All right? It says for service rated 100 amps through 400, check. Ours was 200 amps. The service conductor supplying the entire load. Okay, it says it was the service. So that's it, the main breaker. That's supplying. Those conductors are seeing the entire load of the dwelling. Okay. All right. It's telling me that shall be permitted, and we're talking about the conductors now, shall be permitted to have an ampacity not less than 83% of the service rating. If no adjustment corrections are required, then I can just pull straight from this table. Now, if I've got adjustment and corrections, means the ambient temperature is other than 30 degrees Celsius, 86 degrees Fahrenheit, or have more than 3 current conductors, then I cannot use this table. So what do? Well, I'm not going to go over that in this lesson. We'll save 310.12 for a whole total lesson because we just want to answer the question because there was no adjustment or corrections in our question. But here's why I encourage you to use your resources. And Anthony, elaborate again on the 90.1 so I don't have to go look at it. Just tell me what you're focusing on there so I can push your point. But the reason that I'll look at this and I go, well, if I was lost and I forgot how to do an adjustment or correction for this scenario, then what I would do is I would go to the index, Informative Annex D. And Informative Annex D has an example of how to do an adjustment or correction on a service and using 310.12. Okay, so it shows an example. So if you ever get stuck and there is an adjustment or correction that has to take place in this service application where you would be applying 310.12, don't forget there is an example in the annex, Annex D, how to do it. And then it's going to give you, and it might jog the memory. You go, oh, I get it. It's the same way I do adjustment and corrections for regular conductors. It's no different, that type of thing, okay? All right, my timer is going to run out, but we're going to finish this thought. And if you have any other questions you want to put in the comments before I leave you folks, make sure you put them in there because I'm going to end this and teach this, and then I'll look and see if there's any questions, all right? Okay, so we're going to go a little over today. All right, so in this case, I could just simply go down for that 200 amp right here. And it says that it can be a 2-aught copper. So 2-aught versus 3-aught, right, is going to be a difference in cost. Now, maybe it's only 4 or 5 feet. Maybe it's not a big deal, okay? But there is a difference in cost. But for answering the exam question, this would be the minimum. And for those that say, well, how do you, make sure my calculator is working. For those who say, well, how do you calculate that without just going to the table? Okay, well then, remember it said 83%? All right, so if you go back up to it, it says 83% of the service rating. What's the service rating? Then the service rating is the rating that's on the overcurrent device for the service, and that would be at 200 amps. So I would take 200 times 0.83, and that is 166. So that is the size of the conductor I at least have to have. It has to handle 166 amps, and obviously the 75-degree column. So we can, instead of using the table, now we can go to 310/16, and we can go under the 75-degree column because we're talking copper, and I look for a conductor that can handle 166 amps because that is the 83%. I can't be below that. That was the 83%. So I'm showing you how to do it without using the table in case anybody's lost on that. So then I come down here and you see that, well, obviously 1-aught's not going to work because that's 150, but there's that 2-aught and it's good for 175, means it's perfectly okay to handle at least 166, which is the 83% of the service rating. So that mirrors the table. And so I just picked from the table, okay? So there you go. So in another video, or derating demystified. How many of you have watched that video over on our channel? That does explain how to do adjustment and corrections. So if you can't wait, then go watch that derating demystified video 2.0. Scroll to the end. I encourage you to watch the whole thing. But at the end, I do show you how to make those adjustment and corrections, okay, in case you run into that. Now, reality is, I think that probably none of you have ever done an adjustment or correction on a typical 122 40-volt service because you're not going to have more than 3 current conductors, and you probably don't adjust for the ambient temperature. Now, if you live up in Alaska, you should. If you live in Florida, you should be adjusting those conductors' ampacity, but you probably don't. And unless the exam question states otherwise, then you're not going to be doing that either, right? Okay. So we'll answer out this question. So obviously we have to choose an answer. We already looked and we chose the table, but we also showed you how to do the math itself. And we saw that it was 2-aught. And there you go. And there's your reference. This one just says table 310.12. Okay. All right. So let's come back here. And Anthony is citing 90.1 A and B, Paul. Okay. So I'm going to go look at it because, again, maybe he's pointing something out that I'm should teach or something, you know. Okay, so I'm in the 2023, Anthony. I know you're probably not. But for me, you say 90.1 A and B. Okay. And so for me, I'm going to point out that there is no 90.1 A or B in the 2023 edition of the National Electrical Code, right? So you're probably more talking about practical safeguarding and adequacy and all those type of things, maybe. Okay. But I can't elaborate on Anthony because I'm not sure exactly what you're pushing for, that type of thing. So I'm going to leave it right there. And and I'm using the 2023, so it doesn't have a 90.1 A and B. Okay. I'm sorry about that. All right. John says, everybody be safe out there. Absolutely. It's the most important thing is that you get the job done and you get home to family. And if you're having struggles, anything's going on in your life that you're struggling with, you're in our thoughts and prayers. We will hope things get better for you. And remember, don't give up. Keep pushing forward. If you've taken an exam and you failed it, don't give up. You're going to get it. Relax. I can help you. Okay. And so in our Fast Tracks program, we have what's called Fast Tracks Interact. That is the ability to ask questions directly from inside of the program. And that's what we're encouraging people to do. So in your program, it's at the lower right corner. You see this little blue cloud. Click on it. And it only is available in our basic and enhanced programs or in our Mastering the NEC program, which is for people that are already licensed and just want a kind of a code in their pocket all the time. Okay, that's after post-licensing program. That's our Mastering the NEC program. So I encourage you to ask questions. You can send them via paulabernathy.com. You can send emails to me. They're a little slower because I don't catch those all when you send them directly to us. So I encourage you to use our outlets for it. Use our feature, Fast Tracks Interact. Use paulabernathy.com because, again, those go to a certain location and it's easier for me to answer. If I answer your email, it's because it just happened to be forwarded to me from Darlene or Jeff and any of the new people, Derek, that's helping with the podcast stuff. They will send it to me, but it could be missed. It won't be missed if it's paulabernathy.com or you do it in the Fast Tracks Interact feature. Now, for those that have the Black or the Plus programs, there is no Fast Tracks Interact. It didn't exist. So you're going to have to use paulabernathy.com. Okay? So, again, absolutely. You know what? I guess I want to gauge what people like and what they don't like. So, I do appreciate everybody that gives me likes and shares. I know there's that one guy out there who loves to give me the thumbs down, and that's fine. I love you too. It's okay. I don't mind. Don't break my heart. It's okay. I know I've got my share of haters, but again, you look past all that. I'm just here to teach you. I'm here to answer questions. This coffee hour is up to you, what you want it to be. And so make sure you send me topic requests. Today was a topic request. They wanted me to do exam prep. If you liked it, let us know you liked the exam prep. You liked the engagement. I promise you my coffee was not spiked today. I'm just this way all the time. These is our new mugs that are available over on our website, available in black and white for journeymen or masters. Again, we have the swag if you want to show some love. Whatever you want, I'm here for you. All right? So, yeah, absolutely appreciate whatever platform you are. Thumbs up. And share it with other people, and we will see you, okay? Anthony says, did we read? We did look at it, Anthony. You must have missed it, but there is no 90.1 A and B for the 2023 edition of the NEC, and that's what I'm working on. So, sorry, okay? So, it wasn't here, so you gotta remember, I'm teaching the latest edition. The 2023, and there is no 90.1 A and B in the latest edition. Okay, so there's my out, Anthony. We definitely will cover it on another episode. All right, folks. God bless. And again, Mike, you know who you are out there, Mike, Colorado Springs. Thank you, brother, for the hat. I'm a hat freak. Y'all know I love hats. He's a deputy out there, and he sent me a fire. He knows I love firearms. Everybody knows that I'm a firearms freak. I love it, and so. Yeah, but I also am a responsible gun owner, and I believe that everybody can be a responsible gun owner. I don't be hating on no guns. Okay, gun never killed anybody. It's the evilness that holds the gun is what kills people. Okay? All right, folks. Till next time, stay safe. God bless, and we'll catch you on another Coffee Hour with Paul.